do that again. Good evening, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for this evening, Miss Ashley Christina Miller. She is a Los Angeles, yes, let's give her a round of applause. She is a Los Angeles native, former teacher, and founder of Homeroom, and also my Law High sister. Homeroom is a platform that makes educators feel valued, inspired, and connected through storytelling. Events that inspire hope and community through youth development, Homeroom in collaboration with a host of organizations, hosted in its first youth summit, Are You Worth the Follow? For students between the ages of 13 to 15 years old in Watts, California. The summit focused on breaking the myths that popular culture and social media promote as leadership, influence, and success. Ashley is a proud graduate of Loyola Marymount University, earning her BA in psychology and MA in education. In her free time, Ashley enjoys spending time with loved ones, watching Hulu, and attending comedy shows. She is such a dynamic lady on the move. Lastly, Ashley seeks to equip the next generation of leaders to live a life of purpose. Let's give her a round of applause as she approaches the podium.
Thank you. How are you guys doing today? Good? So I'm looking out in the crowd and I'm trying to locate the youth. Where are the youth at? Okay. Woo! That's good. That's good. So if you're in middle school, if you could raise your hand. Okay. High school? Okay, awesome, awesome. I wonder why we're in the back. Next year we have to be in the front. That's something that we can advocate for. I first want to begin and say, this is a full circle moment for me. In 2016, I began asking God, what is my purpose? Like many of you in the audience, students today, I was given a roadmap to success. You know the roadmap that teachers give you, mentors give you, your parents give you. If you do this, if you do that, you'll be successful. This is how you graduate high school. This is how you graduate college. This roadmap to success, although a good thing, it led me to graduate high school. It led me to graduate from Loyola Marymount University.
Right.
Yes. Are there any other Lions in the house? Okay. Where I received my BA in psychology and Master's of Arts in special education. It led me to the classroom as a teacher at Crenshaw High School, where I now serve as the magnet coordinator. However, at 25 years old, I had checked off every box. I had the outer trappings of success. I had the degree. I had the job after graduating college. However, I was unhappy and I had a deep calling to be and to do more. I began reading this book titled Your Miraculous Potential. And what was fascinating about this book is that it didn't give me 10 steps on finding my purpose or a list of the do's and don'ts. It gave me the tools to deepen my relationship with the Creator. And as I found Him, I found myself, and then I discovered my purpose. We're going to talk a little bit about purpose today.
All right.
I believe my purpose is to be a bridge builder. In other words, to share the lessons that I've learned along the way in navigating high school and navigating college and navigating my own journey towards purpose, to point you towards God and to encourage you in hopes that one day you will live out your own true purpose. By the end of this talk today, it is my hope that every single young person, are you guys still with me? Okay. It is my hope that every single young person in this room is able to answer one question. When you're ready for the question, say ready. Ready. All right. The question is, what are some of the roadblocks that you may have to overcome on your journey towards purpose? What a start in my own journey. Is it okay if I be honest today? There were times in which I simply didn't feel good enough. Now I know some of us may think, well, we always feel good enough, but the truth of the matter is there's a lot of us where sometimes we just don't feel good enough. There were roadblocks that I had to overcome as a high school student on my journey towards purpose. I want to talk to you a little bit about 17-year-old Ashley. I know there's some juniors and aspiring seniors in the crowd today who wasn't quite the top of her class, but she was an overall solid student who from time to time didn't feel good enough. For example, math, it wasn't my favorite subject. I liked it, but it wasn't my favorite subject. In comparison to others such as English or history, I would have to actually study really hard. I mean, take copious notes, go to tutoring at 7:30 before school to only receive a C. I know some of you are thinking, my God, she's a perfectionist. You know, a person that has to have it all together all of the time. And I would respond, well, I'm a recovering perfectionist. And I was also told that the youth in this room are emerging leaders. You're high-achieving, college-bound students. And if you're anything like myself, although the world may see you as someone that is always on the right track, sometimes we don't always see ourselves as God sees ourselves. Despite all my hard work, early hours, and dedication to math, at times I just didn't feel good enough when navigating this class. The other day, I drove by my alma mater and it had a banner hanging on the front gate that read, #1 private school in the South Bay. Again, I don't say this to brag, but only to paint a picture. As a junior in high school, I had a 3.54 GPA, a 1,500 on the SAT, and I was involved in various leadership or community service-based activities at school, home, or church. Now, for my competitors, you know, they're students that have the 5.0 GPA. If that's you, I am so proud of you. The students that took all of the advanced placement courses, but like I said, I was a good, solid student. I went to school, I had a job working at Chick-fil-A, my pleasure. I went to the library, went out with friends, went to parties, I had a social life. I was also one of the first of my friends to drive. We would pile up in my 1997 Camry. We called her Bertha, Big Bertha, because the exterior was gold and the inside was this brown carpet-like material. You guys know the brown carpet I'm talking about. Anywho, we would ride around the streets of Los Angeles, of course with our seatbelts on because safety first, and just have a good time. I was a teenager riding to a hot new hit that hit the streets titled Successful by an artist named Drake. So really funny, I was talking to my student and I was sharing with her, I said, do you remember the song Successful by Drake? She dropped everything. She said, Miss, do you still listen to that? Anywho, it may be an oldie now. Anywho, I was a well-rounded student, as mentors would tell me, but for some reason, the expectations of getting a perfect score on this test or the perfect grades to get into college oftentimes contributed to how I saw myself. Despite not feeling good enough, I mustered up the courage to apply for college. I applied to a host of colleges, UCs, Cal States, and a few HBCUs, and one private school. I remember sitting at my desk in my room, completing the common application, and randomly selecting Loyola Marymount University to my list of schools. A lot of students were going to LMU from my high school, so I chose it because it was familiar. I remember what mentors, I repeat, mentors used to always tell me, you are a good, solid student who is well-rounded. Question for the youth in this room, who is your mentor? And for the adults in this room, do you have a mentee? In applying to college, I knew that my SAT scores were enough to be considered, but my personal statement would be the icing on the cake that would get me selected. My motto was, if I couldn't go through the front, I would go through the back, the side, or the window. It didn't really matter. I would just get through the door. I knew that I could write. I knew that I could write one heck of an essay. I knew what my gift was. Question, what is your gift? The one thing that no one else can do, that you can do. The one thing that you would do for free. The one thing that your friends or your colleagues or even your parents ask you to do. Well, for me, I knew that I could tell my story of who I was, who I hoped to become, and how I would one day contribute to making a difference for others in my community, despite not feeling good enough. I chose a university that just didn't see me as a test score, but saw the fullness of who I was at 17 years old, and who I had the potential to become, not only for myself, but for others in my community. So I'm moving along at 27 years old. I know some of you all may be thinking, how old is she? Even when you do start to feel good enough, I don't think that ever goes away. You just get to the point where you act despite fear. The battle never really ends. There are times in which you may also feel a little stuck on your journey towards purpose. For example, I felt stuck in writing this keynote speech, if I can be honest. This is my very first keynote, and I experienced a lot of anxiety and nervousness leading up to this point. One thing that I'm learning is to replace anxiety with patience, because God has shown me time and time again that He shows up. So in my effort to calm my nerves and search for this second point, I began praying while in the shower, and I asked myself, well, how do I feel right now? And I said, I feel stuck. And then I began to think about how many of us in this room oftentimes feel stuck on this journey towards purpose. For example, I don't know if anyone watches Grownish. Does anyone watch Grownish? Yes, I just started watching it. It's very funny. Zoe, the main character, a college student, she felt stuck after being cut off from her parents after making a few bad decisions despite wanting to work within fashion, and after a few dead-end jobs. So she started working at a bookstore. This taught her the values of humility and service. If I were to flash back to 2011, although different in my own way, I felt very similar to Zoe and Grownish. In 2011, as a sophomore at LMU, the average cost of tuition totaled $55,000 a year.
Woo!
Even with working 3 jobs, my dad wasn't working at the time, and so I was able to get full government aid. My tuition still averaged about $1,000 per month. My sophomore year, I received an email saying, your account balance is delinquent, and I had to move out of student housing. I felt stuck. So I'm like, what am I gonna do? I got to the point I was able to apply for college. I got into college. They're just gonna have to come drag me out of this dorm. I'm not just gonna go down without a fight. So I said, well, I can take out more loans. But I remember my mother going back to college and getting her bachelor's degree and getting her master's degree. And although that was a proud moment for us all, I felt the financial stress of that decision as I grew up. I felt stuck. Then I was like, okay, well, I can call my mom. She usually always has really great advice. And she said, with tough love, she said, baby girl, you're 18 now. You're on your own. She had gotten me this far, and it was all that she could do financially. I felt stuck. And so I said, okay, I'm a hustler. I can always get a job. I've been working since I was 15 and a half. I knew how to hustle and make ends meet. My freshman year, I worked 3 jobs. I worked at Pinkberry, I worked at the Career Development Center on campus, and I worked at Joe's Jeans in Santa Monica. However, I realized working that much and being a successful college student, as my mentor would say, it was a going out of business strategy. It just didn't work. In that moment, I did all that I could physically do, and I still didn't have the solution to the financial barriers that I faced in finishing school. This roadmap to success that I was given in high school was turning into a roadmap to failure. I felt stuck. So here's a critical moment that I don't want you to miss. When you've done all you can, surrender.
Right. That's it. That's it.
Now this goes against what popular culture will teach you. Popular culture will teach you, keep making plays, draw up another plan, get another job, take out another loan, or beat a dead horse. There's a season for that. I'm all for hard work. I value it. But on your journey towards purpose, finding what you're put on this earth to do, there are moments in which we are to surrender. The Bible says in Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 6, to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to Him, and He will make your path straight.
That's it.
So in these moments of feeling stuck while in college, while chasing your dreams, while finding your purpose, I have one thing I want you to remember in moments of feeling stuck. Shift your mindset from I give up to I surrender.
All right.
And I'm open to what it is that I don't know yet.
All right.
In a stuck place, I still went to work that day. I surrendered. I didn't give up. There's a difference. You still serve where you're last called. I was sitting at my desk at the Career Development Center, and an email came across my screen. And the subject of the email was, we'll pay up to $24,000 in financial aid. It was an opportunity to apply to a program called the Student Worker Program. I immediately took action. So there's moments on your journey to purpose where opportunities arise and you have to take advantage of it. Moments are fleeting and they may not always be there. So I left my desk and I went to inquire, and the director said, well, Ashley, usually the interviews are held a year before the current school year, but a senior graduated early and there was one spot open for a female. I I applied, I did a group interview, and I was accepted into the program. So what is a student worker program? For those of you that are thinking about going to a college. The student worker program was created in 1957 to help students remove the financial barriers that they face in going to college. It's very unique to LMU. There was 24 of us, 12 girls, 12 boys, and we all worked for our tuition. I was the only black female in the program, but we all had one thing in common. We were broke as a joke. In years past, members of the student worker program, they would clean toilets to pay for their college tuition. However, I picked up trash around campus. We woke up at 5:30 every single day. We would put on a blue jumpsuit, steel-toe boots, and a bright yellow vest. We would get in a John Deere. I don't know if you guys know what a John Deere is. A John Deere is it's like a small truck you see landscapers doing work in. And we would go from dorm to dorm and pick up the trash bins. And I'm not talking about the small trash bins, we're talking about the really big trash bins. And we would connect it back to the end of a John Deere. We would take it back to the recycle yard and we would sort through it. So plastic in one section, cardboard in another, glass in another.
Yeah.
If you can only imagine sorting through college students' trash.
Ooh. Yeah.
After my shift at 5:30, I would go back to my apartment, get dressed, go to class, just to come back to the recycle yard. Now on Tuesdays, we had something called convocation hour, where students didn't have class at all. And I would be out there picking up trash in front of my peers, people that I respected, and my professors. My mom asked me in conversation, she said, "Ash, you never felt embarrassed to pick up trash in front of people that you knew, your colleagues, your peers?" And I said, I didn't even think about it. I think sometimes we normalize the struggle so much that we don't even realize that we're in it.
Right. Yeah.
However,
so
on a happy note, as the only black female student in this program, the student worker program was an opportunity that removed economic barriers that existed for me in college. And like Zoe and Grownish, if you haven't seen it, I highly suggest it. It taught me the values of humility, hard work, and service. Now, I've told this story before, but at 27, I realize now that the opportunity to be a part of this program was not because of the work of my own two hands. It was because after doing all that I could physically do, I felt stuck. I thought about taking out a loan. I called my mom. I thought about getting another job. I worked 3 jobs. However, I gave up trying to find the outcome. I still showed up to work and serve where I last called and God intervened.
Yes.
So why am I telling you this story? Why does this matter now? We're talking about purpose today. In your journey towards purpose, when you feel stuck, rely on God for direction and clarity. He will make your path straight. He'll give you the vision and the strategy. I'm telling you, it's the keys. It'll distinguish you.
Major key
You'll
alert.
move different.
Major key alert.
Now here's the hard part. We've gotten through feeling good enough. We've gotten through feeling stuck. We're kind of on this path. I can kind of see the light. But usually, once you get over one challenge, it's just an invitation for another. Once you begin heading down the right path, there's also tough decisions that you have to make along your journey towards purpose. Decision making is what differentiates a good leader from a great leader. This leads me to my third and final roadblock that you may have to overcome when navigating change, our education system, and finding your purpose. It's being able to make tough decisions. I'm gonna take a water break.
You said that break, sis. Period.
While in college at LMU, like any student, there were a few tough decisions that I had to make. For example, while a sophomore in college, I was writing this, and I said I had a lot going on my sophomore year. And I didn't realize it. I probably needed a therapist, but that's another conversation for another time. While I was a sophomore in college, I had well-meaning people in my life who were encouraging me to change my major. I wonder if any of the youth here are experiencing that and thinking about what major should I choose and the opinions that are coming to you about what you should do. Sometimes this encouragement isn't always straightforward. Sometimes it sounds a little bit like, well, what are you going to do with a psychology degree? Okay. Learn about people. Psychology is such a broad topic to study. You'll never really be able to solve big societal problems. It's all a facade. Why do you want to major in business? In the economy we live in, you'll never make enough money. Sweetie, I know you want to dance, I know you can sing, but that isn't really your career. What do you really want to do? Are you sure you want to major in pre-med? You'll be in school for years. Oh, you want to be an international studies major? Girl, you just want to travel. What do you really want to do? Well-meaning advice can sometimes begin to plant seeds of doubt in your heart and your mind. It begins to deter you from what you may be called to do. Now, it's important to point out that your parents, family members, and mentors, they mean well, and I wholeheartedly believe that. They truly do, especially when they're footing the bill of your college experience. So parents, mentors, and advisors, hear me out. Don't cancel me out yet. I know parents are giving you advice because they want the best for you. With that being true, it is also true that as a college student, young adult, you begin learning how to take every piece of advice with a grain of salt. Always assume positive intent because the people in your life, they love you.
Right.
And your parents, they know a little bit about this thing we call life. But ultimately, choose a major or a path that will aid you in living out your true purpose and maximizing your true potential. Well, for me, I had to learn the hard way. I wish I had someone giving me the keys to navigate the stress of choosing a major. I let the fear of not being successful lead me to change my major from psychology to natural science during my sophomore year. My thinking was, well, I like to help people, and if I study natural science, I can become a physical therapist, help people, and have access to a well-paying job. Money was the motivating factor, and so I tried to attach my purpose to the back end of it. In my head, I said I can do both. However, driven by the desire of having a good paying job after college, not that this is an entirely a bad thing, and being driven by the fear of not being successful. Leaders are not driven by fear.
Right.
I signed up for biology, anatomy, and chemistry classes. I remember studying really hard, and then here goes the story again, only to receive a C in most classes. I remember sitting in my biology semester B class, learning about the shape of raindrops. And I was like, okay. All right. Now, if this is your lane, I met 3 young men today that said they wanted to go into the sciences. I encourage you. However, I realized that that wasn't necessarily my path. On your journey towards purpose, you have to know your lane and you have to stay in your lane.
That's it.
In this moment, I had to make a tough decision. Should I continue my studies in natural science or should I change my major back to psychology? At the beginning of this talk, I mentioned that I began reading a book titled Maximizing Your True Potential. In this book, there's a quote that really resonated with me. The quote said, God is not going to reveal to you what is my purpose. He's not going to reveal to you what it is that you're asking until you take his advice or counsel.
Come on now.
In hindsight, at 27 years old, I realize now that counsel sometimes isn't always something that you can hear, but sometimes it comes in the form of closed doors. And during my sophomore year, I experienced a few closed doors as it relates to my major. For example, I really wanted to go to Howard University. That was my first choice. And so I created an HBCU exchange program at LMU where students can attend Spelman or Clark while being a student at LMU. Although the founder, I wasn't able to participate because of how my grades slipped after switching my major. Closed door. I was really disappointed, but I thank the Dean of Students for having high expectations in that moment because I would have been down at Spelman studying natural science completely off course. Closed door.
Closed door.
This led me to being on academic probation. Closed door.
You got that right.
Yeah. After 2 major closed doors and feeling disappointed, I decided to change my major back to psychology. My junior year, I flourished. I finally learned how to study. It took me a few years to figure that out. I took classes that engaged me intellectually. I made the tough decision to build upon my strengths instead of focusing on my weaknesses, and graduated from LMU in 2014 on Mother's Day.
All right.
So why am I telling you this story? Why does this matter now? On your journey towards purpose, and this is important, beware of doing things out of ambition. Or in other words, just to make money or to check off another box on your checklist.
Come on now.
Now again, this goes against popular culture. Popular culture will teach you to strive from a place of fear, as I did, but remember, leaders don't lead from a place of fear. To strive to secure the bag or to strive to check off another box on your roadmap to success. However, what I learned is that ambition will push you to do things out of season. It'll have you working in a lane that's not meant for you, and ultimately it can distract you from what your true purpose really is. If you choose your purpose, your gifts, what is it that you're good at? What is the one thing that God has entrusted you with that He hasn't entrusted anybody else with? All of your desires will be met and granted to you. If you choose your purpose, those connected to you, meaning those in this room, our community, they will benefit from your obedience. As emerging leaders who are destined to live out their purpose to make a difference in our community, in our world, I want you to pause and think about what are some of the barriers that you are now navigating while reaching towards maybe graduating middle school, graduating high school, going to college, and ultimately finding your purpose. For instance, maybe you're wondering, well, what is my gift? I never really thought about it. I'm just going to school and checking off boxes. This is what I was told to do. Maybe that's a question that you have. Do you believe in yourself but need a mentor to help guide you along the way? Have you ever wondered why some classes at school challenge you intellectually where others maybe simply did not? Have you maybe experienced having a long-term substitute in a really important class? Have you found yourself taking honors or AP classes that didn't quite prepare you for the AP exam or college, or maybe you just wanted more programs or resources on your campus? Maybe you do have access to great teachers, but they don't look like me and you. Well, if this is the case, you can use your voice and your vote to advocate for access to great teachers, to advocate for being in an environment where you can reach and actualize your purpose. How about seniors, or maybe a freshman in college? Did you recently get accepted into your dream school, but have no idea how you or your family will pay for it? Again, you can use your voice and your vote to research candidates in our local, our state, and even our national elections that are advocating and pushing towards removing the financial barriers that we as African American students face. Or how about family issues that no one really knows about? If I can be honest with you all, at 26 years old, my father and I, we had a conversation at In-N-Out for the very first time. He's been in my life the whole time, and we had this conversation for the first time, to clarify. I said, Dad, can I tell your story? He said, tell it, with a huge smile on your face, because someday someone may be healed. He said, you may not remember, but I used to go to monthly meetings in Santa Ana when you were little, and there was a guest speaker who said things would get so bad. He said this guest speaker really motivated him, that he would sell everything to get his last fix. The guest speaker said, I knew I made it through the night if I woke up the next day and I still had my watch on. We're all dressed so nice today, but behind the suits and the fancy dresses, there's some parents and students who are fighting battles that we will never see.
Right.
So why does this matter today?
Tell it, girl.
Well, have you ever been in a class? We're talking about education. We're talking about barriers to success. And a student was kicked out because of their behavior, or maybe the student excelled academically but consistently struggled with adapting to school rules. Maybe it's not you, because I heard that we have some leaders in the room, but maybe it's a student that you've observed. Well, that student was me. As you think about the barriers that you face today in navigating through high school and even through college, be reminded that these barriers, you have the power to change, challenge, and dismantle through your voice and your vote. A few days ago, I woke up and something told me to write down Judges chapter 5, verse 5. Really random. I've never read the book of Judges before. Usually we just know Genesis and Revelation, right? We don't, Judges is in the middle of the book. But what I learned in chapter 4 and chapter 5 is that there was this woman named Deborah. She was a prayer warrior, she was an intercessor, and she was a strategist. And she was serving in Israel at a time in which there was a need for emerging leadership. So I wrestled with it all week. I said, why is this important? It's so random. Why is this important for this moment and this talk? And what I came to realize is that Deborah really wasn't as important as the state in which Israel was in at the time, that there was a need for emerging leadership. And so as I look at the youth today that are here, you all are our emerging leaders. We need you to be the leaders in our communities, on a local level, state level, and even national level. But first you have to know, what is your purpose?
That's it.
Leaders that truly make a difference, they have one thing that they really care about. And they champion that cause. And they invest others in it in doing the same. So I think about Ida B. Wells, co-founder of the NAACP. She knew her own power. She knew what she believed in. She knew her gifts. And it informed how she made a difference not only for herself, but for our community. I'm sure like you, there were moments in which Ida B. Wells didn't feel good enough. There were moments in which she may have felt stuck, but she was courageous enough to make decisions and to take action. Hence the reason we all sit in this ballroom today.
Yes.
So if you learn anything from today's talk, remember, our power, it starts with you. It starts with you having the courage to live out your purpose despite the roadblocks, despite other people's opinions, despite maybe feeling inadequate, despite what society says is successful. You have the power. And in closing, as Nipsey once said, the game is going to test you. It's not what's on you, it's what's in you. It's a battle every day, mentally, physically, spiritually, and folding is just not an option. So, the question is, to my young people in the room, are you ready? We're waiting on you. Thank you.